Oh, baby. In the last month, I've crossed the final threshold, inched all the way out on a limb, then sawed that sucker off. So, are you ready to join me on the bandwagon for an idiot's guide to opera? Just to be clear, I'm the idiot. Up until a few weeks ago, my exposure to the genre was brief, I'll elaborate in a sec, and ill-informed. But after stumbling across the Maria Callas story and becoming intrigued, I took a chance and dove in. Today, I'm still pretty ill-informed, but I'm becoming a passionate opera fan. Let's go back to the beginning. My earliest operatic exposure was watching Bugs Bunny humorously derail an irritating opera singer in The Long-Haired Hare, a 1949 Warner Brothers cartoon featuring several operatic and popular musical pieces. It opens with Bugs playing the banjo while singing A Rainy Night in Rio. This distracts a nearby opera singer, Giovanni Jones, who's rehearsing an aria from Rossini's The Barber of Seville. Jones absent-mindedly starts singing along with Bugs, then angrily walks over to his rabbit hole and destroys the banjo. It happens several times before Bugs finally gets his revenge on this operatic stuffed shirt. So far, so good. To a kid, even though the opera tunes were pretty catchy, I agreed with Bugs that pop music seemed automatically better than the related over-the-top bellowing. Later on, I saw something that upended that assessment. In the 1994 movie The Shawshank Redemption, there's a 4-minute scene during which Tim Robbins' character locks his jailer in the prison library bathroom, then broadcasts a Mozart aria from The Marriage of Figaro over the public address system. The entire prison population is first confused, then transfixed. Morgan Freeman's character's monologue sums up his feelings. I have no idea to this day what those two Italian ladies were singing about. Truth is, I don't want to know. Some things are better left unsaid. Those voices soared higher and farther than anybody in this gray place dares to dream, and for the briefest of moments, every last man in Shawshank felt free. I thought about that scene when I read about the imminent celebration of the birth centenary of Maria Callas. Somehow I knew her name, but nothing much else. So I read some articles, clicked on some YouTube links, and wham! Now it was me who was confused, then transfixed. Could I actually become an opera fan? I figured there was no harm in finding out a little bit more about the genre. To date, here's what I've learned. Singers are by far the most important variable in opera. Any opera fan I've spoken to is far more concerned with specific singers than specific operas. I've not yet been to a live performance, but I've started watching operas on YouTube. You've got drama, you've got music, you've got singing, you've got costumes, you've got lighting, you've sometimes even got ballet. You've got all kinds of stagecraft, and when the cylinders are all firing, it's mind-blowing. But right now, it still ends up being all about the voice. Opera singers work without microphones, over the top of an orchestra, and they've got to project that voice all the way up to the upper balcony seats. As a longtime music fan, I know from singers. I love the usual suspects for their unique styles and sounds. Mick, Aretha, Sinatra, Dylan, and Taylor Swift. So for me, making the jump from listening to regular singers to opera singers just required a little spark. That was Maria Callas. Callas sounded like nobody I'd ever heard. Seeing her in the few videos that exist demonstrated how her ability to act and sing made her emotions seem almost primal. For me, Callas is the most interesting, exciting, and most instantly recognizable of all operatic voices. Her jet-set life was a literal soap opera. The star, who died in 1977 at 53, had a long affair with the Greek shipping magnate Aristotle Onassis, who eventually married Jackie Kennedy, JFK's widow. Callas's unhappy life has nothing to do with this musical legacy. Of course, there are many other great singers to consider too, but Callas's hold on history seems justified. It owes everything to two things, I think. First, her exceptional vocal and dramatic standards, and second, to the luck of her career coinciding with the explosion of albums and the recording of complete operas. Speaking of which, to celebrate her 100th birthday, a new 131 CD box set has been released called La Divina, Maria Callas in All Her Roles, which apparently isn't 100% accurate since no audio exists for Callas in several of her earliest roles. But the set does include at least one complete recording of each of the operas she made commercially, as well as live performances of operas and concerts, her few televised performances, and even alternate takes and working studio sessions. The list price is $400, so if you've got a few extra bucks and are new to the Callas phenomenon, this gigantic collection is the very definition of one-stop shopping. To get a taste of Callas's genius, make sure to watch the full video of her tremendous Act 2 performance with Tito Gobi from Covent Garden in 1958. Leontyne Price, one of the first African-American singers to earn international acclaim, might be the most electrifying opera singer I've heard so far. She made her debut at the New York City Metropolitan Opera in 1961 and was a box office star for years until retiring in 1985. My favorite collection is her self-titled debut. The Blue Album, as it's known for its cover, is a selection of Verdi and Puccini arias released by RCA Victor in 1961. Throughout, her voice is rich, opulent, and thrilling. She grabs you by the ears and demands your attention. Of course, there's the late Luciano Pavarotti. Never mind just opera singers. For years, Pavarotti was one of the most recognizable people in the world. Being a fan doesn't give me any bonus points, since his 40-year career as a world-class tenor was followed by millions. He undoubtedly exposed more people to opera than all the other modern opera singers combined. Pavarotti's performance at the 1990 World Cup closing concert was seen globally. The highlight was Pavarotti singing O Sole Mio with Placido Domingo and Jose Carreras, which led to the recording of the first Three Tenors LP, one of the best-selling classical albums ever. He also crossed musical genres by hosting annual charity concerts in his hometown of Modena, Italy. It's a blast to see YouTube videos of him with singers from all parts of the music industry, including B.B. King, Andrea Bocelli, John Bon Jovi, Bono, and James Brown. Now, even as a newbie, I've got to mention the intimidating German composer Richard Wagner. He's sort of the musical equivalent of James Joyce with his Ulysses. Wagner's masterwork, Der Ring des Nibelungen, or The Ring Cycle, is an opera that's often compared to feats of human strength and endurance. It's the Olympics, the Everest, a marathon. And in Western performance, there's no bigger challenge for performers. The shortest of the four parts is 2 hours and 35 minutes. The longest, almost 5 hours. Ring singers are a special breed who must be heard over huge orchestras for long stretches without fatiguing. And with 2,000 pages of music to get through, the musicians need stamina too. I'd argue audiences have a tough job as well, sitting in one spot to watch for hours. That's a feat usually left to the ring nuts, as they're known. They're the completists who travel to productions around the world. They're sort of like the old Deadheads, except there are fewer tie-dyed t-shirts. If you're wary of opera as a genre, maybe consider Ring the ultimate music drama, just as Wagner intended. Wagner wrote in so many styles that there are enough hits in there to get you hooked. Consider, for example, the entrance of the gods into Valhalla, or The Ride of the Valkyries, Siegfried's Rhine Journey, or Siegfried's Funeral March. Watching on YouTube, I found parallels with epics like The Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones. And if you don't like one act, you're bound to love another. So in the end, you may find yourself cast under opera spell. Sure, I'm a neophyte, but there's a lot of stuff to dig into, whether from the 18th, 19th, 20th, or even 21st century. It's all new to me. So maybe it's time for you to consider opera. It's easier than ever, given the availability of streaming services, YouTube, and innovative small opera companies popping up in the United States. A final word. Don't stress out about the language or not knowing about opera. Just listen. After an episode focused on the human voice, I think it's time to go out on a limb to the sound of a million guitars. So, make sure you've got your ticket punched for our next stop on the musical genre hopping bandwagon.